The new Monsgeek M1 V5 is here, and not only it's quite improved, but also very competitive in the current keyboard scene. And I really loved it. But how does it stack up versus all the other pre-builds and custom options in the market? Find out in today's video. I'll be covering everything today, and I've made chapters for you to navigate through the ones you need to see. So let's begin. So the folks at the Monsgeek have sent me this one to try out along with the Akko HMX collab switches. This is my first collaboration with Akko and I'm really excited. A big shout out to them. So first, let's talk about the specs. This is basically the 4th refresh of the Monsgeek M1. Yeah, they skipped the number 4 for the obvious reason. When the M1 was initially launched, it kind of created a disruption in the budget aluminum keyboard segment. And like many, I really loved daily driving that. In hindsight, you might think that the changes aren't that big versus the predecessors. But you would be actually surprised to see some of them when I'll be comparing it with my trusty old Monsgeek M1 V1. The Monsgeek M1 V5 still uses an exploded 75% form factor and is made out of a CNC aluminum case. The tapping angle is 6 degrees. There is a rotary knob at the top right that can do volume control by default with a decent tactile feedback. The board is gasket mounted with silicon gasket socks mounted on the polycarbonate plate. It has a 1.6mm 5-pin hot swap non-flex cut PCB with south-facing RGB LED that is available in both NC and ISO layout. The PCB uses the true and tested Kailh hot swap sockets. The PCB supports VIA for programming the PCB. I mean, it's obvious from the name. Plus, it has a tri-mode connectivity over USB, Bluetooth and 2.4 GHz dongle with a massive 8000 mAh battery. To keep the design aesthetics clean, the mode switcher is hidden below the caps lock. You can use this to swap to Mac layout as well. As for the stabilizers, it comes in with the plate-mounted ones, but there are protrusions in the PCB to put in screen stabilizers. You'll get a set of stabilizers in the package as well. For achieving a decent sound, the board comes in with various types of dampening materials, including pour-on plate foam, IXP sheet, pour-on PCB foam, and this plastic type thingy on the case. This is quite handy and I'll explain how it helps moving forward. This time around, it also comes with a pre-built variant with this nice variety of keycap sets and various switches from Akko. The pre-built variant is priced at $110 US and the bare bones variant is priced at $90 US. Now let's talk about the changes made from the V1 and the new features. Design-wise, it's now more uniform with the thinner bezels and a bigger knob. This is really nice in my opinion. But they have removed the golden side accent. It was a staple in the older variants and it kinda made the board unique look-wise. The coating process has also changed, with the V1 being anodized and the V5 being spray-coated. Yeah, it kinda looks matty. The magnetic ball catch mechanism is here instead of screws, and Monsgeek has labeled it as rapid disassembly. Presence of this means it's easy to open the board now. You will just have to put the top frame apart and voila! Also, the gasket mounting style has changed. It has moved from the thick silicon gasket jackets to gasket socks mounted on the polycarbonate plate. Also, the V5 comes in force brake modded with this silicon protrusion at the each end of the keyboard. Look-wise, it's nothing fancy or whatsoever. There is no backweight like most of the recent aluminum keyboards out there, but it's simple, sleek and elegant. The case looks really good in this new coating. Feel-wise, it's quite premium and hefty with a weight of 1.8 kg as a complete build. I was given the bare bones kit variant, but I will be comparing this board both as pre-built and bare bones point of view. Now, let me show you the custom build first. So as you can see, the bare bones variant comes in assembled, unlike the custom boards from QK, Zoom. You just have to put the switches and keycaps and you should be good to go. So like I always do, I'll try it in stock first with various switches and let you know how it sounds and whether it's usable in its stock config. Plus, to put it into perspective, I'll compare the sound head to head as well with the Monsgeek M1 V1. Skip to the sound test portion if you don't want to see the build portion of it. Afterwards, I'll share my thoughts about it. I'm sure you have all heard the sound, and in stock it sounds amazing. And unlike the older gen of Monsgeek keyboards, the stock sound of Monsgeek M1 V5 is far better than a fully modded Monsgeek M1 V1. The M1 V5 doesn't require any sort of mods and tinkering. Stock stabs are really good and rattle-free thanks to the factory tuning. I can safely say that you can use this keyboard without tuning the stock stabilizers or trying the screen stabilizers, unlike the older Monsgeek boards. And this is what I had to do to make the Monsgeek M1 V1 sound good. Yeah, lots of mods. The older Monsgeek boards required tape mod and force break mod to make it sound decent. I would say this is a big win. At a time when almost all boards out there sound solid right out of the box without it requiring any sort of modding, Mosngeek boards were falling behind. It's definitely a plug-and-play keyboard for the folks getting the bare bone variant. Sound type-wise, it's deeper, yes, thanks to the polycarbonate plate and other dampening material used, not bassy enough. I felt like with all the switches I've tried over here, it felt like it had a bit of a treble. Sounds more like marbly or creamy. Plus, having a non-flex cut, thicker 1.6mm PCB means it sounds fuller overall. Although it used quite a bit of foams, I didn't feel like the board sounded foamy. Among all the switches I've used on this, the best one is going to be the Akko Mirror. In case you don't know, Akko's collab with HMX gave us these two new switches, Mirror and Stellar Rose, and I've tried both on this build. The reason for liking the Mirror switches is quite obvious. It has a high-pitched, crisp, clean sound profile, and it sounds really similar to some of the community favorite HMX switches like Cheese and Cloud. They are of course super smooth, and bottoming out was satisfying all the time. This is due to the bottom null end case and POK stem. Stay tuned if you want to see my coverage on Akko Mirror switches only. And those of you who are first time into my channel, I would ask you to subscribe to my channel because number 1, it helps me making videos like this. Number 2, more videos are on the way. Now, with the plugin out of the way, let's talk about the Stellar switches. About the Stellar Rose, yes, it's alright, it's smooth, but I didn't like the sound profile. Other switches that I've liked on this were the Sarokeys BCP and Epomaker Zebra. So, my opinions and sound tests give you an idea on what sort of switches would go nice with the Monsgeek M1 V5. Tapping feel wise, it was really good and I had fun daily driving it. The silicone gasket socks gave a more bouncy feeling in compared to the gasket jackets used in the Monsgeek M1 V1. The magnetic ball catch mechanism is a win for 2 reasons. Number 1, there are no screws so the board looks clean. Number 2, for the modders, it's easy to open. But I feel like this board doesn't need any sorts of mods to improve upon it. But hey, the option is there for you to do some experiments if you are into it. While I loved everything about it in my daily driving, I really need to talk about one thing I didn't like. You cannot use it foamless, unfortunately. In my opinion, a board's true potential comes from how it sounds foamless. Here's the issue I have faced while using it with the only plate foam. The plate and the PCB combo was super wobbly. As the gasket mounting gives quite a bit of a bounce, when you bottom out the switches during typing, the PCB will hit the bottom case, creating a clang type of sound. The foams used in the board kinda counterbalance the instant flex it got with the upgraded gasket mounting. So let's compare the sound of Monsgeek M1 V5 foamless and with foam. Look, it's not a massive deal breaker at all. A good chunk of people would love the board's sound the way it is in stock with all the foam, and that's absolutely fine. But I felt like it's worth mentioning as many of you would try to get the max potential out of this keyboard moving forward. Let's talk about the software. It uses QMK VIA to program the PCB and it's actually really easy to work with. Just open the web app version of the VIA, sideload the JSON file and you should be good to go. So remapping the keyboard across Windows, Linux and Mac shouldn't be an issue. So no matter in which platform you're in, this keyboard is not going to be an issue. Not only you can program the FN rows, but also the encoder as well to make it work other than volume control. Plus you can program the RGB of the board using this and control them with the onboard key combo like all the keyboards out there. So make sure to refer to the manual for all the key combos for RGB and other functions. About the polling rate, it's 1000Hz in wired and 2.4 GHz mode, while the Bluetooth mode has 125Hz polling rate. Like all the boards these days, it has the NKRO. The latency was absolutely alright and within the acceptable range across all the mode. I didn't see any lag in wired and wireless mode. So I guess for most of the casual gamers, this should be absolutely fine. I really need to talk about the battery life of this board. I must say, it's insane. I've been daily driving it on and off for quite a while and I'm only through 4 bars out of 10 with RGB on in Bluetooth mode. And depending upon at what mode you are using, RGB brightness, the battery life will vary. I've seen folks using it for 1.5 months without RGB in Bluetooth mode and still 6 bars of battery life is still there. So keep in mind that the battery drain will be higher in 2.4 GHz mode due to higher polling rate. Monsgeek claims that you can use it up to 500 hours without RGB and in Bluetooth mode, but your mileage may vary. Let's talk about some of the things that could have made the Monsgeek M1 V5 even better. By the way, these are not cons at all, a more like wish list for the future Monsgeek boards. Firstly, the addition of more colorways. I mean, we really need to see some colors other than the basic ones, especially in red. Yes, I can understand that mass producing in common colors reduces the overall cost and keeps down the price, but I wouldn't mind some unique colorways. Secondly, plate options directly from Monsgeek. I think this board could benefit a lot from plate options like FR4, PP and aluminum. I mean, sure, you can use the plate file given by Mosngeek to make your own, but having an option to get it from the manufacturer itself would have been nice, as many people don't have access to custom plate makers in their specific regions. Thirdly, addition of magnetic connectors. It's becoming a common these days with the likings of ND75 in the similar price range. It's especially helpful for the newcomers as there is a chance of messing up the JST cable, and I've done quite a lot. Lastly, maybe expand upon the options of switches on pre-built. This board sounds amazing with the Akko Mirror and this should come in as a pre-built option. Now the main question, is it worth it? Yes, both as a pre-built and custom. We have seen a rise of great pre-built keyboards within $150 range which are essentially great custom bare-bones kit paired with some solid switches and keycaps. The gap between pre-built and custom keyboards is getting slimmer. For someone who is looking for a great out-of-the-box keyboard experience, this is it. As a pre-built keyboard, this screams value. And I would say the pricing of $110 is quite competitive with all the boards out there. Now, if you consider having a knob on your 75% keyboard, the other competitions are Leoborg Hi8 SE, Epomaker Galaxy 70, Epomaker P75, Ola Fire 75, Keychron Q1 Max, and Lemokey P1 Pro. The Epomaker ones, although costs $100, they lack the VIA. Same goes for the Leoborg Hi8 SE and the new Ola Fire 75. The lack of VIA means you can only program the PCB in Windows as they don't have the software for the other platforms. The Keychron Q1 Max on the other hand is super expensive and not worth the price in my opinion. And I have doubt about the QC of Lemokey keyboards after having subpar experience with my Lemokey L3. So it's kinda miles ahead of those in terms of value. However, there is this new contender called Yunzi L80 with similar specs, having display and knob, and QMK VIA. But it's pretty new and I don't have idea about the board. But it would be interesting to see how they both compare head to head in a future video maybe if I can get my hands on it. Now, if you disregard the knob, the options are a lot, including Bridge 75, Shilky ND75, Vermeer SK75, Vermeer RD75 or PMO Wave 75 with gasket mounting, similar ball catch mechanism and magnetic pogo connector. The Mosngeek one has a 1.6mm PCB which I really prefer as it doesn't impact the sound of the board. The only other board that has a 1.6mm PCB option is Shilky ND75. Plus ND75 has multiple mounting styles and now web app based driver similar to VIA. So it actually comes down to whether you want a non-flex cut 1.6mm PCB, whether you need knob, display, other mounting styles, etc. Other notable mentions are Rainy 75 and Wake Stars 75 with decent mounting, keycaps, switches and VIA compatibility. As for the bare bones, options for 75% are very limited under $100. I think only few 75% that are available as bare bones are Lemokey P1, but that's not a try mode. There is HJS L75 V2, but I didn't try it and also it lacks QMK VIA. For cheaper, there is this Leoborg Hi75, but at this stage of the hobby, I don't recommend getting it. Check my review on Hi75 to know why I didn't like it. Then there is again the Shilky ND75, Beer 75 with tri-mode options but lacking knob with decent software, display, unique mounting styles. So I guess in this regard, Monsgeek M1 V5 still is a solid option if you are planning on using your own sets of keycaps and switches and going for your own sort of sounds. If you have access to custom plates, make sure to get them as well. In conclusion, the Monsgeek M1 V5 VIA in hindsight might look like just another 75% keyboard, but it's more than that. With all these great specs, solid sounding right out of the box, and along with being priced competitively. And I really loved it. Be it pre-built, be it custom, this is a solid buy. With that, I'm wrapping up for today. Thanks for tuning in. Again, big thanks to Monsgeek for sending out the board. With that, Goodbye and have a great day.